Hey, again, it's that time again. Here we are, and welcome to the Professor of Perseverance podcast, where we talk to people who have overcome struggles and have thrived in life despite what life has given them. So our guest today is no different than others. Hey, now, before we get started here, go to my website, professorofperseverance.com, and I have my newest book that came out with a mini course to go along with it. And it's titled Your Past Doesn't Have a Future, but You Do. Create your future today. Free. Take it. Take the course. And once you get inside, you'll get a free ebook of Your Past Doesn't Have a Future, but You Do. So, again, thank you for being here. And today, our guest, his family lost their home and business in a terrorist bombing when he was 6 years old. His parents' resiliency and hope in the face of such tragedy instilled in him the belief that no matter what the struggle is, we can survive. Author of the book Leadership Lessons from the Pub, welcome to the show, Dr. Irvin Ted Nugent.
Thank you so much. It's delighted to be here.
So, well, appreciate you being here. Yes, and our theme here is we want to see how people overcome their adversity, their struggles, and what we've done throughout life. I mean, we're all going through something, right? Don't you think so, Irvin? We're all
Oh,
going through something. There's some is more than others, and I don't discount anybody's struggle because we don't know how would act if we're not in that situation. And so, what we may think is trivial may be heart stopping, life threatening. And an example I give on this, Nervin, is say you get up in the middle of the night and you go to the bathroom and you stump your toe on the door. Now, other than whether you got to the bathroom in time or not, that's another story. But when you go to bed, you may lose an hour of sleep because your toe is throbbing. Other than that, what if you're a hemophiliac and now you're bleeding internally from that toe? What if you have brittle bone disease? Now you've shattered that toe. What if you're progeria? You know, that's a people, they're like 10 years old, but they look 80 years old. The body has aged so rapidly. And so I don't discount anybody's struggle just because I don't go through it. It may seem trivial to me, but may be life threatening to them.
absolutely. One of the things I like to say is, when you scratch beneath the surface of any human being, what you will encounter are people that are going through pain and suffering, and that, as bad as it is, creates a possibility for connection. Because if we can appreciate how pain impacts us, we can begin to appreciate too that even though it's different, it's impacting them as well.
Exactly. And again, we all have bad days, and hopefully we find people that are compassionate, understanding. And I know I have been idiot before and blew up on somebody when they blew up on me when I should have been compassionate. But I try to do that nowadays. Try my best, the hardest to do that, to help them out, to help guide the way. Is what I try to do. So I'm not perfect, but I'm hopefully I'm better than I was 10 years ago at it.
Amen to that. Hopefully we're all evolving and growing in that. We all have our good days and bad days. I always like to say, we can be the most evolved and skillful person, but if you skip a few meals, if you skip a few nights of sleep, etc., it's amazing how difficult it becomes to hold it together. And just we're always fragile, and we have to be humble. I always say, humility is important. To be humble in the fact that we're always learning about ourselves, and we always, at times, we miss the mark, and that's part of being human.
And I've said before that we don't know how strong we are until we're put in a situation. I've
Absolutely.
had people. I'm in a wheelchair from spinal cord injury. Got my neck broke playing football. Told I'd never walk again. Put me in a nursing home, as they told me. And fortunately, my family was hard headed, didn't listen, and here I am today. But I've had people come up to me. I couldn't do what you're doing. I said, well, you don't know. You're walking. You're not in my situation.
Absolutely.
I said, I'm sure you've gone through something that I don't know if I can handle because
Yeah.
I haven't been through it. And
Yeah.
so, and not that I want to wish the hardest and worst thing on anybody, but we're pretty good. We're resilient, like you said, and we do pretty good on trying to turn things around. Sometimes it takes longer than other people. We're slow in some areas and to move on, but eventually we figure it out and we go in most incidents.
Yeah. It's amazing. An earlier part of my career, I used to run an organization for homeless young people. And whoa, you sit back and you listen to some of those stories of why they're on the street. And it could have turned into, oh no, pity is me, woe is me, etc. But one of the things that I came away with is how resilient, despite this, despite what they've gone through, despite everything, we are resilient, and this desire to survive and to thrive is there in us, and it's amazing.
I would like to see a research, and I'm sure that there's a research out there. I don't want to do it; I just want to read it. But when kids are young, they are so positive, want to go grab the world by the tail and take control of it. Then something later in life, I don't know if it's the environment, mom and dad, other people that hang around, then they're so bitter about certain things. But they weren't like that when they were younger. And I would like
No.
to know about when that turns around. Is it right preteen when they're trying to find what they want to do or something? But I would like to do that. Just again, I would like to read the research. I don't want to do it. So all right, Irvin. Hey, Doc, if you can go and tell us what's this about. Your family to the age of 60, y'all lost your home and business to a terrorist bombing. What happened here? What's going on here?
Yeah, so I was born in Northern Ireland. I was born in 1967, which is so classically my generation is called Children of the Troubles. I grew up just as they were beginning. And for those who don't have a background or understand that, basically Northern Ireland really had broken into two tribes. One was what we call the Unionist tribe, or the Protestant tribe, who wanted to remain British and part of the United Kingdom. And then there was the Nationalist tribe, or the Catholic tribe, who were not so much driving it, but were more interested in joining the Irish Republic and forming one nation. And around that time, a terrorist organization, the Irish Republican Army, grew up, really to achieve that end through violence. And there was a corresponding Protestant terrorist group as well. We owned a pub. And we owned a pub in the border area in the western part of Northern Ireland. And my dad was a very interesting character who, as I've got older, I've begun to appreciate more. And, one of the rules that he had in the pub was that anyone could drink there. And so many pubs in Northern Ireland at this stage were segregated. It was either Protestant or Catholic. And he was anyone comes. I don't care who you are, just keep the peace. Now, unbeknown to me, he was getting death threats on the phone, and basically they were saying, if you don't stop serving Protestants or off-duty army or police, we will destroy you. We will destroy the pub. We'll kill you. And of course,
this would be roughly in the time in the 60s that we were having the social
absolutely.
with the blacks and whites back then. There would be certain places you couldn't go eat if you were colored. You couldn't drink out of the same water fountain. And so we had that conflict while you were having yours in Northern Ireland. Yeah. So that was ours. Basically the same thing you're talking about.
Absolutely.
With that, people trying to find acceptance in life. Yeah. Because there was people threatening if they fed a colored person back then.
Yeah. And in many ways, the civil rights movement here inspired a civil rights movement in Northern Ireland, which is interesting because there was this kind of awakening that basically we will not be oppressed. And then the violence, then there was a group kind of the offspring of that. But so one, it was a Friday, and my parents were in the capital doing some shopping, and I had gone to bed. I was 6 at the time. I have 4 sisters, and they were there. And so my parents were driving back from the trip. My mother had bought a dress to attend my aunt's wedding, and so she was excited to show it to her daughters. And so my dad was anxious to relieve the barman who was working. And so they went in, and my dad went to the pub. My mother went upstairs. And but 8 p.m. in the evening, two masked IRA gunmen, they burst into the pub. One of them got all the customers against the wall and held them at gunpoint, and the other placed a bomb on the counter, lit the bomb, and said to my dad, "You know, you have 5 minutes to clear the place, and this is going off, and don't touch it because it'll go off." And so at this stage, everyone ran out. My dad went up the stairs. My mother and sister my mother's and four sisters were there. And so they cleared. He went to my bedroom, picked me up from the bed, ran down the stairs out the door to the other side of the street. And literally we were just looking at the building, and the explosion went off, fire throughout the building. And the expression, we were left with the clothes on our back. We were left with the clothes on our back. And and I don't remember a lot about it, but one memory I have is I can remember being in my father's arms, and I can remember him raising a clenched fist and him saying, "Watch me build again." And just from the sheer, his anger, but his anger was, this is not going to define me, and you think you've knocked me down, but watch me come back. So that's the memory, the abiding memory of the night that I have.
Wow. I like you. It's like your dad there, that you may have knocked me down, but all you've done is maybe get and want to be 10 foot taller to be able to accomplish more after what you've
Absolutely.
just done. And to
Yeah.
have that mindset, that's powerful.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the days afterwards, it's kind of interesting how we all reacted to that. I was a 6-year-old. My parents, my sisters, who were older than myself, were dealing it in their own way. My mother disappeared. Actually, I didn't realize this when I was writing my book. My sister said, "Mom disappeared for a few days," and I said, "Really? What was that?" And said, "Well, it later came out that she'd been pregnant, and then she miscarried because of the shock of the event." And I went back to school. At that stage, just go back to school now and get on with it. And there's part of this. It's funny, how we deal with tragedy in our lives. For a 6-year-old, for me, we had been on the BBC News. And of course, no one was ever on the BBC News in our small little town. It was a little Ballamagari, population 150. So I became a little bit of a celebrity, in school. And so I can remember that. So in the midst of this tragedy, I can remember going to school and like, oh, everyone's looking at me. I'm kind of a celebrity. But the great story out of this is my dad. He began to enact in that rebuild. And so in the week following the bombing, he had contacted neighbors. He got some tents, big, large tents. He got some drink. He got furniture. He got music. And like 1 week to the day of that bombing, like in one side of the parking lot was the pub, which was burnt out, still kind of in many ways smoldering. And then the other side was a tent with music and laughter and people coming together. And for me, that's resilience. That, one side you've got the worst of humanity, and in the other side you've got the best of humanity. This is what the human spirit is capable of, and despite its worst instincts, the human spirit can overcome.
And today we're talking with Dr. Irvine Nugent, author of Leadership Lessons from the Pub. So appreciate you again being on here. And I was just talking to a friend earlier today that, we were saying there's still a lot of good people in the world. It's just a shame that our media wants to show the 10, 20% of the bad that's out there instead of the 80% that's great, that's
Mm-hmm.
good, that's
Mm-hmm.
helping, that's doing things. And it's sad that it's like that. So, but yeah, you're correct. There's the will to want to do and want to help, be out there, man, outweighs the bad stuff. But it just gets to me, and I may be the only one. I'm sure you're a little like me, but I just think it's sad. I wish the media would spend more than 2.5 minutes on a good story, and 20 minutes on what's going on wrong.
Oh, totally. And I mean, and the problem with it as well is it impacts us. It absolutely impacts. One of the things that I talk about, when about growing our optimism is be very careful of the diet that you're receiving in the news and in social media, because that diet is not healthy. Because really, the focus is on what's wrong. And if the only focus is what's gone wrong in our lives, then that just focuses us on what's wrong with my life. But if the focus is something that's uplifting on what the potential, that impacts us, and it impacts us how we think. And absolutely, I mean, even just some balance, not 28 minutes of everything that's gone wrong today. And oh, by the way, we'll have our hero story for 2 minutes. But if we could change some of that balance, and what I say to people is just create your own balance. So instead of going to the news first thing in the morning, I said, there are plenty of websites that will give you a 5-minute summary so that you won't miss anything. And I said, then just be so careful in curating what you listen to, because it will impact how you view yourself, view your day, and your outlook.
What goes in usually comes out on the other end with you as well. Yeah. Because again, you take something personally, or you get just so used to getting beat down and hearing it. Then, like I said, you love to start your day off different. So yeah. I try to avoid the news as much as possible, unless there's unless there's a huge event that worldwide we need. Now, I'm one of them. I believe we've had a lot here, school shootings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of them. I believe, I'm sorry it happened in Colorado, but why do I need to know about it in Tennessee? Because
Mm-hmm.
you got too many copycat people
Mm-hmm.
that's feeling sorry, and they're mad because they were bullied. Oh, wait a minute, they did this over there, and then I'm going to go do it. But they had
Mm-hmm.
no idea, no clue, didn't think of it until they saw it in the news.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm somewhat, of course, that never happened now with the way social media is nowadays. It's all out there now. But
Yeah.
yeah, 20 years ago, 25 years, I'm going, maybe if we didn't show everything, maybe these kids wouldn't get these ideas to do some things.
Yeah. And it's not even showing it. It's the it becomes the focus for day after day after day after day. I mean, and that therein lies a problem too. We that just it becomes, it's almost like a news addiction. So it's almost like, it feeds the addiction for the big story, and we'll suck the life out of this until something else tragedy happens, and then we can go move to that. And you know, maybe it's good for ratings, but it's not good for our spirit.
Exactly. And a lot of people, if you go back to it, and I'm sad to say I remember a few names. I don't throw them out there. But like you said, it's day after day after day, because they're trying to figure out what happened, why they do it, who they're going to do it to, are they going to look out for more. But they'll always show the shooter's face and their names, and they're being publicized. And then how many people that got killed can you name? Because they don't get the same recognition. They may do a 2-minute thing, run their names through after 4 days, but where the other people have gotten it day after day after day after day, their picture up, their name up there, and people glorify it. Well, people are going to remember me now because I'm going to go do like they did, and people are going to know that I was here. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's some things I don't believe we ought to be known. Again, with social media today, that's out the window. Everybody's going to do, it's out there now no matter what. So
Mm-hmm.
all right, now, so 6 years old, you're rebuilding life. Mom and dad's rebuilding everything. And sorry about mom with the miscarriage from it, but y'all are putting everything back together. Dad's focused on coming back bigger and better, and you're not stopping him. So, what from then on, you went on to school and everything, and you've got a lot of your education into emotional, intellectual learning, teaching lessons.
Yeah, so part of that experience, and that continued really, right through my growing up, teenage years, etc. That was the background. The background was this constant potential of violence. I can remember going shopping even as a teenager, and every single store that we would go into, we were searched, our bags were searched, and every single shopping trip on a Saturday, there would be an occasion when we would have to leave a store because there would be a bomb scare. Didn't mean there was a bomb there. So this was the undercurrent to it all. And, I think it placed in my heart, within it, was like, is this really the best that we can do as human beings? Is this really what we've come to, or isn't there a way of really being better than this? And so, part of that for me was, I lived in a very divided society where really communication had broken down and it turned tribal, and each side had its own story, and that was the only, my story is true and yours is not. And so part of that was, how can I respond to that in my life? How can I be a person who helps build bridges rather than walls? And how can I, and so often it's our emotional life that's the cause of this, our inability to deal with our emotions, our inability to use those emotions to good. And so that's really been always part of what I have felt the threads throughout my whole life.
And controlling those emotions is indeed a struggle in itself, because
Mhm.
how many people you hear that are locked up in jail and everything had to do with love, from that emotions, what they did, why they did things, losing control emotion because of retaliation. And so, con- controlling and maintaining positivity on those emotions is a struggle in itself.
Yeah, and really, understanding what our emotions, our emotions are there for a reason. Our emotions are there to help us. As human beings, we are built to survive. We have an incredible ability to overcome. We have an incredible ability to react in the moment to protect ourselves. And part of that mechanism is built on emotions. So, we become fearful or angry even before we realize consciously we are, and our body goes into a whole defense system, partly based on that fact that we are here to survive. And so the skill to manage that, the skill to be aware that we're in that is, sometimes the difference from reacting in rage and sometimes in violence to the difference in being able to use another tool that will either help me walk away or to diffuse. And those are important skills because it is the difference between living really a life with purpose and really a life of reaction.
I'm worried. I hate to say worried, maybe concerned with social media the way it is, that it's too easy to get a dummy account and you can hide behind that to bully other people today.
Yeah.
And because these kids are growing up with no accountability on their emotions and control from there. And so they're not developing, like you said, the right mechanisms to be in what situation.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I agree with you wholly. So, in other words, you can express today on social media the most vile hatred and have no accountability. And the true test of that is, if I'm sending off a vile message to someone and that person was in the room, would you say it to their face? Of course, more often than not, of course you wouldn't. But because we can hide behind anonymity, we can hide behind this, and I think it is. I think it's just not only is it destructive, but I really don't even know that we know the impact it's having because it's in real time now. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in 10, 15 years time, as research comes out of people that have been able to get away with this. And it's destructive. At the very least, it's destructive.
Oh, exactly. And again, not having that conflict resolution, how to
Right.
handle those, and
Yeah.
like I said, just exploding, bullying, whatever. And yeah, so I'm not too sure. Like I said, it's going to take years to to do some type of research, something to figure this out. But I'm concerned for our young folks
Yeah.
on this issue. So, all right, now, man, but going through a bombing and everything, it's starting all over in life. Um, Tragedy, yes. For a 6-year-old, could be fun. We're getting something new. And of course, sounds like mom and dad, especially dad, being positive and everything that we're going to do better and everything. So it would make things easier for the family to move on from there. So how can you stay optimist
Yeah.
through some tragedies such as this?
Well, it's a great question. I think part of it, first of all, is we have a choice. I think that's very important for us to get into a mindset that how we react is not predetermined. We may think, others may think they like, they say, well, this is how you should have acted. No, we have a choice. And part of what it was instilled in me from my both parents was, despite this violence going on all around us, we have a choice on how we respond. And there was a number of lessons there. Number one, we're going to respond by getting on with our lives, because ultimately what terrorism is all about is fear. What they want to do is they want to put fear in your heart and change the way you live. And what my parents said, no, we will, despite, and it doesn't mean we don't feel fear, but we will walk in the midst of that fear and get on with life. So I think for me, that was very important, because the point is, now I face many fears, none of them as catastrophic as a bombing, but I'm fear when I wrote a book, I'm fearful because, oh my God, what if social media gets on that? What if people don't like me? What if people don't like the book? All these fears. And said, Irvine, this is just some fears, and it's okay. So you have a choice. Are you going to be handicapped by those fears? Are you going to let those fears control you, or are you going to respond? So I think, that's the first thing that comes out of that. We always are in choice. We always have a choice how we react. And that's important. And I think, the second thing then is optimism. So, as I said before, we saw the worst of humanity. I grew up where people literally were killing other people. There was hatred in the heart. And yet my dad always taught me, both my parents, that at its core, human beings are good people, that there is goodness. Despite all of this, we all want the same thing. And to be able not to let that drag you down into looking at people as bad, and just to keep that positivity. So I think part of that was, and I've inherited that as well, is, I fundamentally believe that at our core, human beings are good people. And at our core, we want the same things. And I think that helps as well in the response.
Fundamentally believe that when the rain stops, the storm stops, we're going to get that rainbow somewhere during the day. So
Absolutely.
and I've mentioned before, and I'm sure some of the listeners are tired of hearing it, but I tell, sometimes we have to walk through the fertilizer to smell the roses. And
Mhm.
so, and again, for me, what happened with me, with being in the wheelchair and playing football, is taking things for granted for life. Uh,
Mhm.
like if I was doing everything and was going to get everything I wanted in life because of me. It was all about how I was going to do it. I felt I was invincible, and so it was all me. Where I should have been more conscious, thinking about I'm me because of other people that sacrifice things for me to be able to get where I was at. And so I've learned that. You mentioned that earlier about having gratitude and humility, and I kind of learned that the hard way. But I'm glad
Mhm.
I've learned it.
Yeah. Yeah. And how we come to our learning, it's one of the age old questions. Why is there suffering? Why is there pain in life? And we can really go down a spiral of despair. But in some way, if we're able to look at that even while I don't understand it, I know in the future it has service. It can be used, and I think that's what I've always. So while this experience was horrible, and I would never wish it on anyone, I know that it serves. It has helped other people, and why I don't understand why it's happened. That's okay. I still have the choice of using it to help other people. So life at times doesn't have easy answers, but we've just got to at times just trust.
Trust and have faith. So I'm guilty of this, and hopefully I'm better at it, like I said earlier, than 10 years ago and 20 years ago. But used to do the old, why pitiful me, being in the wheelchair, and going on, dude over there doing the exact same thing to me. Why didn't he get his neck broke? But we want to compare ourselves too many times with each other. And so why am I going through this, but they're not? And then when we compare it to someone that's not going through it, we go down this rabbit hole, like you said, because now we're getting depressed and wanting to figure things out. When sometimes, like you said, we don't have to exactly know why. We're going to find that out one day, but we don't have to know it now. The sooner we can accept it, the sooner we can heal and move over in life.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of it, and that's it doesn't mean as well that there isn't a place for anger, except I always think one of the most the most misunderstood emotions is anger, because we've got into this reality of saying anger is bad, and I said no, 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 no. Anger is an emotion, and it can be destructive or it can be constructive. And I said, our anger has compelled. We talked a little bit about, the social rights movement, et cetera, righteous anger, kind of anger that the world shouldn't be like this. This is unjust. There's an anger in that which has compelled some beautiful movements to change. And just anger at our situation and what's happened, that's okay. It's just an acknowledgement of, what? Anger is caused when something gets in the way of our life. And so, very often when tragedy happens, we had dreams, etc., about how it was going to be, and all of a sudden it's taken away from us. The logical response to that is anger. And it's important to express it. But then after that, then it becomes, okay, now what do I do with this? What do I move to? Because I have a choice. I can either just stay in this anger, I can wallow in it, or I can readjust life and what the future will be, and how do I readjust that? And then that becomes a more positive approach to going forward.
And see how we have the best life possible. Now, yeah,
Yeah,
we could hold on this anger until we have a stroke.
yeah,
That's not good for us. And like you were saying, there's good anger, bad anger, wrong anger. And that's like all of our emotions. I mean,
mm-hmm.
even good to an extent is not
Yeah,
good,
yeah,
depending on how you use it. Example, I had this one friend one day, he found a $20 bill laying on the ground. He says, "Boy, am I blessed." And I said, "I don't know. Did God send it to you or did the devil send it to you?" And he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Are you going to use it to buy food, shoes, give some money out to a homeless person, or are you going to turn around and do drugs?" He was a drug. And I said, "Or do that." So depending on what it is, it's a test from either God or the devil. And he ended up doing drugs with it. And I said, "So are you blessed or not?" So big, you left it up to him. So our emotions like that, we have control to make them good or bad in
yeah.
whatever situation.
Yeah, we're always in choice. I always say that we always, and well, part of learning good emotional intelligence is become more aware of our emotions. There are people who are unaware and really live a life of reaction. What I mean by that is, they all of a sudden, they've lost their temper or whatever. There's stuff coming, and they're not even aware of their interaction with other people. And so part of that then is becoming more self-aware. But the more self-aware we are, the more than we are in choice. I have a choice. Is this how I want to act? Is this really what I want to do with this? And that becomes a more deliberate way of living.
And how we want to live our life. I give this example before that I was going to work one day. I was a school teacher years ago, come around the curve, and I'd missed the accident, but apparently a dog had gotten hit in the road, and you can see his back hind legs were paralyzed. So he's on his belly and everything. You can see him taking his front paws, trying to drag himself off the street because he wanted to survive. And so
Mhm.
here we are. How many times something happens to us and we're whining and crying instead of trying to find out a way to survive and go forward in life? Now, I never found out what happened to the dog. I don't know if someone put him
Mhm.
down because of being paralyzed, whatnot. But yeah, that goes to again, we have a choice. His dog, his choice was he wanted to live. I'm getting
Mhm.
off the road before I get hit again. You know, we have a choice. We can either wallow in the mud of pity with the pigs, or we can pull ourselves up, do the best we can in life, and go from there.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's a fundamental. And no matter, it's the fund. It's really what makes us human. Our ability in the face of whatever we are facing to choose how we react. Because ultimately, situations can rob us of many things. People can rob us of many things. But one thing they can't rob us of is how we react. And then that becomes, I always think the story of Viktor Frankl, during the
Oh,
concentration camps.
yes, yes, yes.
Ultimately, that's what he settled on. Here I am in a situation over which I have zero control. But one area I do is how I react. How am I going to respond to this? And that's what makes us amazingly human, beautifully human.
The Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes.
So yes, that's a powerful book. So listeners, if you hadn't read this one, you need to get that or get an audio of it, whatnot. This is a powerful book back then, and how again he lost all control of everything, lost his family, children, everything. But one thing he didn't lose was his own free will of thinking and how he's going to react to everything.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
all right. Hey, Irvin, appreciate you being here. Hey, we are guest today again, author of Leadership Lessons from the Pub. Listeners, go get you one, man.
Mhm.
Get him $1.50 per book. So from off air. So help him out. So all right. Tell us how. Again, I appreciate you being here, and the story is powerful. And again, the way you overcome, the way your family overcome, the way your dad overcome, and instilling that and your mom into your DNA is just remarkable from there.
Yeah.
And I appreciate them doing that as well. And I was basically raised by a single mother, and I really appreciate because a lot of these single mothers are the strongest people that survive through the least so they can sacrifice for their children to do better. And
Yeah.
so they are so powerful. So,
Yeah.
all right, Irvin. Hey, Doctor, thank you for being here. Go ahead and tell us how we can get a hold of you socially. Give us that website for your free course and other
Sure.
curriculum you have.
Yeah. So if you, the easiest way is to go to my website, which is my name, irvinnugent.com. You'll find there a number of different resources. One of them is the book, which is irvinnugent.com/book. There is a course. One of my missions is to help people understand their emotions, use their emotions to build up relationship. And so there's a free e-course, which is irvinnugent.com/gift. And you'll be able to access that free course. And then also every Wednesday, I put out a YouTube video, 10-minute video on emotional intelligence, different aspects of working at home. So again, just put in my name at YouTube and you'll find it there. And if any of you are on LinkedIn or whatever and want to connect, or Facebook, please feel free to do that as well. I always enjoy connecting and having conversations.
I tell people, if nothing else, Google Irvin Nugent and don't mistake him for Ted Nugent. So, all right. So, yes, I tell people to Google. Plus, I'll get that information and I'll put it in the description for anybody
Awesome.
and just go click on them and get there in a hurry. So, all right, Irvin. Hey, I appreciate it. This has been awesome, man. If you can, there's people struggling today. We talked about it earlier that something's going on with somebody. So, if you can leave us with a powerful message that could help them get through today, that'd be amazing.
My mother taught me this, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier. My mother used to say to me, whenever life was not going our way, or ever we're suffering, she used to say, that your suffering is going to help someone in a future day. And I always think, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And now I kind of have a little more wisdom, So at times when we're going through a painful day, it's so easy to focus on the pain and ask the questions. But if we can just say, you know what, I don't understand. I just don't understand it. There is no answer. But I know that what I'm going through today is going to help someone tomorrow or the day after. That maybe it's going to make me a better listener. That maybe it's going to give me more empathy. Or maybe it's going to inspire something. But this is not for nothing. Someone is going to benefit from this. And I think it just becomes a little mind shift away from focusing on what we're going through and can really just help us bear it a little bit better.
Amen. And your mother is correct. And it's going to help someone. And it took me years after being in a wheelchair, graduation one day, and the president come up to me and he whispered to me through the college and he said, "You don't have to know it, but there's people watching you. And they want to learn from you and they want to see how you get away with do things. And so you're going to help them whether you know it or not. But do realize people are watching." So there. So your mother's correct.
Yeah.
People that's going to learn from you that you don't even know that they've seen you go through something bad or read about you in your book or read about it in the newspaper, saw it in the media back when you were 6, and then they see how y'all came through it and then inspired them to get through something. So your mother is on top of it Doc.
He was absolutely.
All right. Thank you again for being here. And
My
everyone
pleasure.
else, yes, sir. And everyone else that's coming in, hey, be sure to subscribe and get a download of this. Be sure to send this to someone else. Share it with someone that you know is hurting, struggling. The message is the same. They don't have to be through a terrorist bombing at the age of 6 or a spinal cord injury like me. But you know someone's hurting. The message is still the same. It's overcoming adversity. Get us through the worst side to the good side where we'll thrive in life, not just survive. So everyone else, do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your paralysis.